The Minnesota Vikings still need cornerback help, and Trent McDuffie's having a little situation over in KC. Huh?
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. You all make the world go around. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Today on the show is Town Hall Tuesday. That means I'm answering your questions and I am responding to your hot takes. As submitted to me via the Google Doc in the show notes. Keep an eye out for a second one that's going to be for bold predictions. We'll do that on Friday. Bold predictions will be a little bit different this year, but we will still be doing a bold prediction segment every Friday. I would never take that away from all of you. I know how much you love it. But if you ever have a question or hot take you want to confess anonymously, please throw it in the Google Doc. Or if you're an angry Bears fan who just wants to, complain, but in a way that nobody else will see it, which is really exudes a lot of confidence because a bunch of Bears fans weren't in there again. Happy for you, but I'm not going to read most of your things. The first one I am going to take is from, by the way, there were like 70 questions and hot takes and stuff. I can probably get to like 20 in a day on the most questions at most. And so I am so sorry if I didn't get to yours. I did read them all, and that does like help me get a sense for where the community is at. So thank you all so much for participating so much. I feel it. I feel the energy. I love it so much, but I can't get to everybody. I'll get to as many as I can. Screams at his TV Dane asks, should we be putting the same emphasis on CB depth as we are for the wide receiver 3 spot? Call me crazy, but I would feel better in the long term if we used our draft capital to get a more legitimate veteran CB as opposed to a guy to fill a hole for the first 3 weeks. True. I think the wide receiver thing was an issue for sure, a short-term one, but we were kind of touch and go there when that was happening with like wide receiver 2 Ty Felton. He's not ready to do that. So I do think that was a much more dire issue, but yeah, a long-term cornerback would be pretty awesome. My name's Jeff has a great idea. With Trent McDuffie and the Chiefs not reaching an agreement on an extension and the Chiefs picking up his 5th-year option, can you envision a way that the Vikings trade for him and make him the top-paid cornerback in the league? Top-paid corner in the league is like a lot. Somebody else asked if like they could do a Micah Parsons thing with Trent McDuffie, or if he would like cost 2 first-round picks. He would not cost 2 first-round picks. That's for players who are a lot more special. McDuffie's a good corner, but he's not special. And what's interesting, so the Vikings weren't into McDuffie that year, but the draft group that year, the war room that year, was not good. It was all of the leftover Rick Spielman scouts. It was brand new Kwesi. He had been in the organization for like 2 months when the draft happened, and that draft was a total whiff. A whole bunch of people, by the way, wanted to like push back on my takes from yesterday's episode. I need to reiterate, that was the optimistic case. Like I was being biased as part of the exercise. People are like, how can you be optimistic? Because I set out to be in the episode. What are you talking about? And I will do the pessimistic one tomorrow. So for all of you that are like really freaking out that I said happy things because you can't hear them, I get it. Okay, you're Minnesotans, you can't hear happy things. I get it. You're Midwesterners. It's how you're built. But you'll love tomorrow's episode. Anyways, with McDuffie, so a lot of times I will look at like, okay, did the Vikings like that player coming out? Like Will Levis, people bring him up. Hey, well, could Will Levis be a backup? Kevin O'Connell did not like Will Levis. At least I think. He talked about a player that he like vetoed. He knows Liam Cohen very well, who was Levis's OC, so he would have the book on the guy. And he was on the board at 23, and the Vikings picked Addison instead. He passed on him, and I think enthusiastically so, because he would have been the only reasonable quarterback that like makes sense for it to be the one that Kevin O'Connell vetoed, unless he's talking about some 6th rounder. But I didn't really feel like it. I don't know. With McDuffie, they passed on him too, and they ended up going with Seen and Booth. Big whiff. But that was a different group of people. It was a different group of scouts. It was a Kwesi that has learned quite a bit and has been super open about the failure that was the 2022 draft class. And so I think that they would be a lot more open now that he has proven to be a much better corner. He plays inside and outside. That's huge for me. The Vikings not having any inside corners outside of Byron Murphy and then safeties doing double duty, that's their like inside corner plan, is really alarming to me. So I think it makes a lot of sense if they could swing the trade and the compensation and the money and all that stuff. As for how the money would work, Trent McDuffie has his 5th year option picked up. It's like 13 mil or something like that, 14 mil guaranteed in the 2026 season. So a contract extension would probably have to defer a lot of that money because 2026 is a cap crunch year for them. But they're going to be able to defer a lot of that money through basically the rest of the 2020s. They've got pretty much everything still left over. So it'll be pretty easy to defer all of that money, just like they're going to do with the rest of their contracts. And they'll be able to do it with all of those really comfortably. So if they can swing it, that'd be awesome. And I also don't think that's something that happens this week necessarily. That could be a trade deadline move. That could be a next offseason kind of move too, on his last season, because the Chiefs still have 2 years of team control on him, and they're not going to be willing to give that up nearly as easily until it is 1 year of team control. So it's a tall order, but it's not impossible, I guess, is my my take on the whole thing. And you know what? Adam Thielen was a tall order too, and they got that done. UND has 0 rings. I don't know what beef that's a part of. Is that an NDSU thing? I don't know. It says, with Ham out the first couple weeks, what will happen to the whole fullback portion of the playbook? This is a great question. I do not know the answer to it. I have 2 leading theories. One, they throw it out. They just do more 12 personnel stuff. If you were going to have a fullback, now it's a second tight end on the same side of the field. The blocking scheme is pretty similar. It's just different angles. 2, you have like Josh Oliver be your fullback. He just does it. He just lines up there. He takes the flat routes and stuff, and he does it. I think both options are reasonable. And I guess the third option is you practice squad some rando fullback and bring him in for 10 seconds just so you can have those angles all be the same. But they do have Josh Oliver on the roster, and I feel like he's kind of for that. And maybe even Ben Urasek. He was a decent blocker in the preseason. That might be a job that he has in the first parts of the season. Skull and Crossbones. Skull and Crossbones, I recognize your name from Seasons, but you haven't been around all offseason, which I can tell from the question who asks who showed the most improvement during the preseason and did they end up making the team. So welcome back. And I bet there's a lot of people like you that didn't watch all offseason, didn't pay any attention all offseason, and are now back as the season and trying to get caught up. You've come to the right place. The big improvers during the preseason in camp. Jalen Redmond was a huge one. Yes, he made the team super comfortably. Didn't even play in the last preseason game. Dallas Turner is a guy that has been lauded as someone who took a step, at least in camp. He played one drive of the preseason. It was fine. You couldn't really take a lot from it. But he the camp performance was really excellent. Basically, Walter Rouse was the only guy that could get a lick on him. And he played with the 2s for the most part, but the 2s played against the 1s a lot. So he got the better of Justin School quite a bit. He had some good reps against Brian O'Neill. So like, it wasn't just that he was beating up on like Leroy Watson all day. And the explosiveness is there. He's visibly bigger, stronger. And the whole beat has been like, yeah, Dallas Turner looks like he's taken a step forward and is very much regarded as a starter in the defense, even though Van Ginkel and Grenard are still going to be taking probably more reps than him because they're both Pro Bowlers. That's a big one. And somehow Jordan Addison, he's already really good, but he looks like he's taking, he and Jonathan Grenard are 2 guys that have gone from like, hey, they're pretty good players to, whoa, these guys might like make some noise. Blake asks, as of 8/27, the only players on the Vikings interior D line with a listed weight above 295 are Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. Why are the Vikings planning to run such a lightweight defensive line? This is a critique that I also have. Taki Taimani is on the practice squad, might be elevated. They might use that for like goal line things, but you're going to have to put him on the active roster eventually. And I think it's just a matter of favoring speed over size, but you will get run on that way a little bit. And the other hope is I think you might see more Jalen Redmond than you think. I think he's going to have a bigger role than you think. He's not a bigger guy. These are all like penetrators. So I think they're just hoping to like flatten out the surface, get a bunch on one-on-ones and get somebody in the backfield. That seems to be the thesis. And if you think that's a little fragile, I agree with you. Anonymous asks, I'm happy to have Thielen back and have no qualms about the price we paid, but what exactly was the point of Ty Felton? Presumably we wouldn't have been exploring wide receiver trades if we felt good about our depth. And I feel like it should be a fair expectation to set that a third round wide receiver could be adequate depth in his first year. Yeah, I said this after the draft and everyone got mad at me. But like he wasn't going to play this year. And yeah, I think he's not ready. That's part of it. Like what he did in the preseason, I almost did a video about it, and then they traded for Thielen and kind of made it not worth my time, not like, and kind of made it a moot point. But like, he's getting better at some of the stuff that I thought held him back at Maryland, the pad jumping, tipping routes and stuff, but it's still not ready to put on the field. As a special teamer, he's going to get a lot of run on the field, and that's part of the point too. And that they even cited that. They said we drafted him because we like his special teams. But he's a special teamer right now, and they hope he becomes a receiver, like a more contributing receiver in the future, like 26 and beyond. Oh my God, I have so many more questions. This is going to get rough. I'll get to as many as I can, as well as your hot takes next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner. Thursday is the first game, so everybody is researching, getting their drafts in order, maybe even getting waiver claims ready to go if you've already had your draft or whatever. Look, this year, everything I'm doing in fantasy football is on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should be too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. If you are sick of the redraft world, or if you just want to spice it up, try something new, there's a whole bunch of ways to play on Yahoo Fantasy that are different, like the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. If you want to play instantly with friends, you can try the new Draft with Friends mode, and if you prefer the classics, get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. If you have no crew, no problem. Join a public league. That's the easiest and quickest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. If you get time, check out the listener survey in the show notes, and would be very helpful if you could fill it out, if you can. Moving on here with the Town Hall Tuesday mailbag. The next one comes from Justin, who asks, as a fan, which would be your preferred outcome to the season? JJ McCarthy struggles, ends up somewhere around like the 27th best QB in the league, but the defense and running game are enough to win 11 games and make a brief playoff appearance. Or JJ plays well somewhere around the 12th best QB, but the defense falls apart and they have injuries on offense, leading to only 6 wins. You know, look, I get what you're kind of getting at here. I am personally, like, I think you're asking about my emotions. My emotions want them to win. And if they win, but, they win, but, that never really bugs me very much. It bugs me more how much attention it gets when they win, but. I don't know what it is about the Vikings, and I think it's just because their fans are so, like, shell-shocked all the time, that like a game has to be perfect before we get to be satisfied with it. And even then you just start tearing down and being like, yeah, but they weren't even that good anyways. So does it really mean anything that they beat them? There's a lot of like nitpickers that will, and I nitpick too, but I'm forgiving about it. That's my thing. So that said, I just like it when they win. I'm very simple. I like it when the Vikings win. Why they won, why they could have done better, why all that stuff. It's great to analyze. It'll be part of the podcast. But me personally, I'm way happier when they win an ugly game than when they lose but get a moral victory. I don't really believe in moral victories or moral defeats. You win or you lose. So moral victories be damned. If they win 6 games, that sucks. Anonymous asks, after the playoff loss to the Rams last year, you mentioned on the post-game podcast the Vikings seem to struggle with man-to-man coverage, even with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the field. Do you feel like the Vikings have adequately addressed this concern through their roster construction? I don't think that's quite the nature of my critique. They struggled against, those two guys struggled the most against very physical coverage. The thing is, very physical coverage often draws flags, so that problem kind of solves itself sometimes, and I don't think the Vikings need to be particularly motivated to solve it as much as they needed to motivate problems, or they needed to solve problems on their O-line, on the interior of their D-line, and that's what they prioritized this offseason. So no, but I don't think that they necessarily had to. Thielen will help a little bit. He's a bigger player. He plays with a little bit more physicality, and he can still, I think, beat some man coverage. TJ Hawkinson is a big part of that as well. He's great at separating against man, especially against slower linebackers. Hindsight Apologist asks, looking at the run of first-round wide receivers in the 2023 draft, would you trade Jordan Addison for Zay Flowers or Jackson Smith and Jigba given the chance? How did you rank them prior to the draft? prior to the draft, I had those three as kind of the way I had like the quarterbacks last year, where I had like, okay, these are my top three, but in like a loose order. And if you had a different order, I was never going to argue with you. My order was JSN, Addison, and then Zay Flowers. I would not trade Addison for those two guys. I have a pretty extreme Jordan Addison opinion. I am a Jordan Addison extremist. I am a Jordan Addison believer. I think he is a phenomenal player. He is. I think without Justin Jefferson, we saw this his rookie year, by the way. I think if Justin Jefferson were not on the Vikings, Jordan Addison would be seen as one of the better receivers in the league. He just is never going to get the volume because of Jefferson, and that's fine. He plays the game in a way that is a lot rarer than he gets credit for. And I know that that's a hot take and that I'm kind of at the top of that mountain. And I am very comfortable with being on the extreme end. All right. I'm out of the Jordan Addison Overton window and I'm very fine about it. So no, I would not trade those guys. I don't think I was like wrong about Jackson Smith and Jigba. It sounds like he's doing just fine over in Seattle anyways. And so is Zay Flowers. The only guy in that top four that I didn't like was Quentin Johnston, which turned out to be true. David McClendon asks, today I learned the Vikings signed Adam Thielen, a pretty good old guy, while the Packers signed Micah Parsons, a generational young guy. Please talk me off the ledge. Well, the price is different, right? The Packers now for the next 2 years don't have first round picks. They also spent $200 million on them. So the price is very different than, spending what amounts to a 5th round pick. I think once you calculate all the draft picks that went back and forth on Adam Thielen, and then he took a pay cut. It's a very, very different, and I think very different levels of urgency. The Vikings had a little bit of a wide receiver depth thing that they maybe that needed a little help with. The Packers had a bigger emergency than I think people realized on that defense. They had no pass rush last year. Brett Coleman made a video about this trade that I thought was really good. They had no pass rush last year, and they were kind of running it back and hoping that better coaching was just going to fix it, and that like Lucas Van Ness would take a step forward. It would be like the Vikings losing out on all their safeties and then being like, well, hopefully Lewis Cine steps up. Like it was a little bit hope casty. And so I think they desperately needed like a true disruptor. There was nobody on that defense that really scared you. Xavier McKinney is a good ball hawk, but like nobody really struck fear into you in that defense, and they needed that really bad. And I think because of the timing of it, they paid out the nose because the only real option available for that was this Micah Parsons situation that not only do you have to pay 2 first-round picks, which I think is a fair price, but you have to give him basically everything he wants in the extension because he had so much leverage in the whole thing. That said, if I were a Packers fan, I would be like, okay to all of that. I would be absolutely satisfied with all of that. And here's the thing. There's a lot of people in this mailbag and everywhere all over the NFC North, like panicking that the Packers got Micah Parsons. I did a whole episode about what his contract potentially means in a grander NFL sense and how that impacts the Vikings. That was on Friday, but I didn't really talk about the impact he has on the Packers. Yeah, he's going to make the Packers better. Yeah. What do you want me to tell you, that he's not going to make the Packers better? No, I think they were in desperate need of exactly that. It's going to be that much more difficult to defeat them. Are they going to go 17-0? Probably not. That nobody does. So you'll find a way to be beatable. And for the Vikings, you get like 11 weeks of tape of Micah Parsons on the Packers and how Jeff Hafley wants to use him. I think that's really important. I'd be a little bit more spooked if it were the Lions, but for that, he also has a back issue, by the way, and he's getting like epidurals. So that kind of short term, he'll take 1 million painkillers, he'll be fine. But in the long term, that's definitely something to keep an eye on as well. E-Telly asks, lifelong Vikings fan, but never really enjoyed paying attention to offseason until recent years. I'm curious about the accuracy and predictability of training camp takes and predictions. If you can recall, what were the training camp observations around Justin Jefferson as a rookie? Oh boy, I am so glad I get to tell you this story for the first time. A lot of you remember. So yeah, preseason training camp and all that stuff is notoriously wrong all the time. Every year there are several teams that surprise us, both for the good and the bad. And therefore analysis, like they have a first place schedule. They have a, that team won 13 games last year, so I have them on the over and 10.5. That sort of analysis is pretty famously a total crapshoot. Anything can happen in the NFL. And it's why it's why I'll never be as sure as like some of the Bears fans in the comments about how good my team will be. Justin Jefferson is actually a great example of this because Justin Jefferson's rookie camp was pretty bad. He got locked up by Mike Hughes. Like, he was struggling in camp. And it came out later, and like 2 years later, Kirk Cousins in a press conference said that Justin Jefferson didn't know the playbook until like week 8, which isn't wholly abnormal, but it'll hold him back, right? Which is why he was wide receiver 3, basically, in the first few games of his career. And even that breakout game, that week 3 game against the Titans, he didn't know all the plays. They were running a truncated playbook of Justin Jefferson was on the field because he didn't know everything. He did great at those plays. Maybe simplifying the playbook was a good idea for the 2020 Vikings. They could have done more of, but he didn't know everything, and that's why, as good as 2020 Jefferson was, there was still room for him to take a step forward in 21, 22, and so on. But he got off to a very slow start. And if you went off just training camp and like the vibes there, people were like, oh my God, how he cooked by picking Rager over Jefferson. Like, that was the vibe in training camp. And you saw how that turned out. So yeah, pretty famously all over the place. And any training camp people telling you that they know how things are going to go, they're selling you snake oil. Mauricio, who says, fantastic job at getting my name right in the past. Now the pressure's on and I forgot. Is it Mauricio? Is it like in Romeo and Juliet? I don't know. Says, the season starts in about a week and we still only have 4 CBs. It seems like it's no longer enough time to fully pick up the Flores playbook if we get a new guy. Or does Flores ask so little of CBs that they're confident that the new guy will pick it up in time? You know, the Flores scheme is not, I don't think, particularly complicated as opposed to like man match cover 7. It's a lot of zone, and every zone, I mean, you've got your kind of specific rules, but at the end of the day, middle third is middle third. You know, deep third is deep third. Mod is mod. Squat is squat, or flat, whatever you want to call it. Hook zone's a hook zone. I think the Flores defense cares about certain skill sets in a very unique way. They care a lot about downhill trigger, cornerback tackling more than other defenses do. But I don't think that there is, like with the Zimmer defense, that had a lot of mental complexity to it. Learning the Flores defense is a lot easier than reading the Flores defense as like an offense, which is by design. Oh man, I didn't get through all the questions. I got a lot of them. Sorry, there were a couple of Bears fans I was going to make fun of, but I didn't get to you. Sorry. Hope you guys win on Monday so that I don't stop hearing from you forever. But I do have hot takes, and I want to get to them. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NFL is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. If you're like a parlay person, you want to stack 8 things together, you can do that, and you can find all kinds of individual player props or straight-up spreads and money lines, or if you are just a Super Bowl type better that likes to bet on the color of the Goodell's tie or whatever, you can do that, or the Gatorade color, you can do that when the time comes. Or if you like to do the more classic things, bet something like Minnesota Vikings plus 1.5 or minus 1.5 at the Chicago Bears. They're favored by 1.5. Or if you want the Bears money line as an emotional hedge, I respect that. That's plus 108. Whatever it is, if you put $5 down on your first bet and that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. That's 60-1 odds on anything. So find some favorite money line and put down $5. You get your $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is also brought to you by Upside. Everybody is always frustrated about gas prices, aren't they? You are too. Stop leaving that money behind, though. You can get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use the limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed, or I guess save up to $300 a year is more accurate. Don't let this offer drive by you. Download the free Upside app now by using my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. It's time for your hot takes here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. I have so many hot takes, I will never get to all of them. But look, a good hot take, for one, you got to be, some of these are just not hot. And I've talked about that in the past. But some of these are absolutely excellent. The first one comes from Screams at his TV Dane, who says Blake Cashman will have more turnover, sacks, and defensive touchdowns than Van Ginkel and will be invited to his first Pro Bowl. I think it's a reasonably hot take. It's like a comfortably warm take, you know? It's a cozy fireside take, but it's not burning me, okay? It's not burning me. But I get it. The Last Dayton Triangles fan, fantastic name by the way, who has a great one. JJ McCarthy will be the only NFC quarterback to get an MVP vote. That is so good. This is scorching hot, right? Because that means no hype at all around Jared Goff or Jordan Love or Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels. Like there's NFC quarterbacks that are going to get MVP votes. But that also that JJ McCarthy will be basically clearly far and away the best quarterback in the NFC. If that is the case, then he probably would have a strong MVP case because the Vikings, if they have far and away the best quarterback in the NFC, if this comes to pass, right? Our lips to God's ears. Then the Vikings are probably running away with the NFC itself, right? Unless they have like defensive struggles, I guess, which is possible. Here's an interesting one from not a big fan as others, and I'm gonna have this little heart to heart with you. It's about Adam Thielen. He says Adam Thielen is not the right choice for the Vikings wide receiver room on a team concerned about play on the field and culture. Adam Thielen is not the right choice. This is a very long one. I'm not going to read it all. Sorry, buddy. But it basically goes to say that Adam and Caitlin Thielen have like alienated Minnesotans and that they've criticized the governor. And it's a lot about Adam Thielen's like political beliefs. And here's my deal on this. I think he's allowed to say it and you're allowed to say that you don't like it, right? Like that. I have no problem with anybody talking about what they believe politically in whatever context. I think that's kind of how it's supposed to work. However, in an NFL locker room, nobody cares. I'm sorry. That's just where it is. And I know we are in as politically divided a place as I've ever seen in my lifetime. And pretty much anybody born after the 1970, I think. But it's still in an NFL locker room. It runs the gamut. You got coaches that are dyed in the wool Republicans all the way back to Nixon. You've got, younger millennials that are as far on the left as anybody else is on the right, and they just kind of put it away and play together. They make a point to just sort of never talk about it. It's the dinner table and you just don't talk about it. And that's fine. It works in every NFL locker room does that. So if you don't like Adam Thielen's politics, go for it. That is your right. But it's not going to come up in the locker room and you don't have to worry about it. Old Mike Zimmer had a redacted EIEIO. Says Justin Jefferson will have worse stats than Addison this year, even with the 3 missing games. There will be drama midseason about how JJ and JJ aren't on the same page, akin to OBJ and Baker. Boy, so this is probably modeled after, if you missed training camp, one of the big stories of training camp was that JJ McCarthy and Jordan Addison got an incredible rapport. Those guys were like symbiotic. Like they were on the same page on every throw. It was awesome. Deep throws, intermediate throws, everything. It was super, super fun. Justin Jefferson missed most of camp with a minor hamstring strain, which he's back from, by the way, so don't sweat it. But he missed a lot of that time to quote unquote build chemistry. The thing is, Jefferson and McCarthy have built a lot of chemistry over the whole offseason. They worked out a lot over the offseason with Adam Thielen, by the way, who's part of this now too. So I don't think that there will be a chemistry issue. But if this does come to pass, we'll probably go look back at that camp and the process there with a closer eye. Flat Crocodile says Kwesi is recreating the 2013 49ers he originally joined, and most of his roster moves can be viewed through that lens. I actually think it's a pretty good take. I don't think it's that hot. Yeah, I mean, it probably was a formative time. They had a young quarterback that was second year Kaepernick, right? So they had a young quarterback that they were excited about, a whole bunch of expensive veteran talent around them, and they went to the NFC Championship game, and they had gone to the Super Bowl the year before. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Or was Kaepernick a third-year quarterback? Was he a 2011? I forget. Unidentified Kleinsasser That's so good. Says the incredibly competitive NFC North has done nothing but become more competitive this offseason. This one is also not hot. This is just a reasonable opinion. The regression of the Lions due to the brain drain in the center loss, the progression of every other team in the division due to their offseason additions. Every team will split. Oh, here's the hot take. Will split their series 1-1 with every other team in the division. That's a pretty tough parlay to hit. Causing a 4-way tie for first that will be decided through tiebreakers, sending only one team from the North to the playoffs. Yeah, maybe this is a good division that beats itself up. It's like the AFC North, right? That, they hand each other 4 losses and you get 2 weird miskicked games and suddenly you're 11-6 and you're like on the outside looking in and you're in the wild card or something like that. Yeah, I could see that happening. A jugs machine to nowhere. You guys are cooking with these names. Says the Bears will suffer from the fatigue of being 3-time consecutive offseason champions. This champions hangover will lead them to winning less than 5 games this season. Truly a sad story, but it can't be avoided. This is the cost of offseason greatness. Okay, here's what I'm going to say to the Bears fans, okay? Because I know you're still hate listening. You guys are the ones with the hot take, okay? If I can use betting odds on FanDuel as a proxy for public opinion, which I think is reasonable, doesn't mean it's right, but it's what the public thinks. If you want to look at win totals right now, for the Bears to win 8+ regular season games, they are currently minus 125 to win 8 or more. The Vikings are minus 210. So significantly more likely as it is seen by the public. If you just want to go with win totals, the Chicago Bears have a median win total, because on FanDuel, you can do anything. You can bet any win total you want. You can bet over 5.5 wins for a team. It's minus 400, but you can do it. It evens out around 7.5 wins. So the over-under, you could say, is set at 7.5 wins for the Chicago Bears. If you think the Bears are going to win 8 or more games, that's plus 105. That's better than double your money. Go do it. And that's what I always say. If you think the public is that wrong, go do it. But I'm not the one with the hot take here, okay? I'm not the one with the burden of proof. I think actually that the wisdom of crowds here is probably being pretty reasonable. To compare, the Vikings is somewhere between 8.5 and 9.5. It's probably about 9 wins. Because over 8.5 wins is at minus 125. Under 9.5 wins is at minus 160. So the public basically thinks 9 wins and then 7.5 for the Bears, which I think is fair. That said, for the Bears to win under 5.5, we can use FanDuel to get a vibe for how the public feels about that. If that hits, that's plus 310. You could get hotter. And I'll take one more here. It's from Hjort, who says, I've lost some respect for you for canceling the Everyman series due to lower ratings. I understand from a business perspective, but you're creating a form of art here. So I want to be just absolutely clear that the fact that it didn't get views never bothered me too much. I'd be lying if it wasn't like part of the equation. It always is when you're a podcaster, you got to do the thing. But I fell out of love with it. That's what it is. I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't have the passion to do it anymore. And I realized that, why force the issue? I could force the issue regardless of the views when I liked doing it. But if I don't like doing it and nobody likes watching it, what are we doing here? That was my logic. But really, and this will always be what it is on Locked On Vikings. And this is why I'm ending with this. Locked On Vikings will always be me talking about what I want to talk about. Always. And whether or not that's what people want to hear, whether that or not that's what people are talking about. There's a bunch of other Vikings shows that just try to find the most popular topics and, hit whatever the best SEO is. That's never going to be me. So I want to be abundantly clear that the Everyman series, which is, the Storytime thing will not die. I just wasn't feeling it. And so I didn't do it. And that's part of what I think makes good art is you have to have passion for it. Tomorrow is going to be an episode you guys probably won't like. It's every concern with the Vikings, every reason that they will fail. It's the counterpart to Monday's show that was all optimism. Next one will be all pessimism. And then we're going to cross over with Lauren. We're there. We're doing pregame stuff for the next couple shows. So I'll see you all for that. And as always, Skol.